The cape you never asked to wear, why 600,000 Black women walking away is the revolution. Philanthropy refuses to fund. I recently had the privilege of sitting down with Sabrina Anderson, a visionary leader whose work is quietly reshaping how we think about economic justice, community power, and what it truly means to lead with radical love. Sabrina isn't just advocating for Black women in leadership. She's dismantling the very systems that have kept us grinding, surviving, and carrying everyone else's dreams while our own communities crumble under the weight of neglect. Her insights challenge everything we've been taught about success, strength, and what it takes to build something that lasts. And what she shared with me, what I'm about to share with you today, might just change the way you see your own journey from survival to softness, from hustle to wholeness. Let me ask you something. When you hear that over 600,000 Black women were pushed out of the workforce in 2025 alone, what's your first thought? If you're like most people, you probably think that's terrible. That's a lot of individual job losses, a lot of resumes to update, a lot of people scrambling to find their next opportunity. And you'd be right. But here's what Sabrina Anderson helped me see. And here's what the data reveals when we look closer. This isn't just an employment crisis. This is a hidden leadership collapse. This is a community economy on the brink of disappearing. And if we don't act now, we're not just losing jobs, we're losing the backbone of entire Black communities. Think about it this way: when a Black woman loses her job, especially in the public sector, where nearly half of Black workers hold college degrees, she's not the only one affected. She's often the primary breadwinner. She's the one supporting aging parents, raising children, investing in her church, shopping at local Black owned businesses, mentoring the next generation. She is the economic engine. And when over 600,000 of these engines shut down in a single year, when the employment to population ratio for Black women drops to 55.7%, one of the sharpest declines we've seen in 25 years. We're not just talking about unemployment statistics, we're talking about millions of dollars in wages vanishing from Black communities. We're talking about tax revenue that won't fund schools. We're talking about local businesses that won't survive. We're talking about over 4,000 jobs in Black led organizations, two-thirds of them led by Black women, that are at risk because the funding isn't there to pay living wages. Sabrina Anderson showed me something that philanthropy has been slow to acknowledge. When Black women led nonprofits are underfunded, when they're forced to navigate burdensome application processes, when they're given just enough to survive but never enough to thrive, the ripple effects are catastrophic. Let me paint you a picture. The Black Equity Collective surveyed 220 Black led organizations across California. These weren't fly by night operations, these were established community anchors. Organizations that had been serving their neighborhoods for years, sometimes decades. And what they found was stunning. These organizations, most of them led by Black women, sustain over 4,000 jobs. 4,000, that's 4,000 paychecks. 4,000 families fed, 4,000 people contributing to Social Security, paying taxes, buying groceries, keeping the lights on in local businesses. They invest millions in local economies. They are the glue holding communities together. And yet their budgets remain stagnant. They're asked to do more with less, to prove their worth over and over again, while traditional funding models continue to fail them. They're told to submit 30-page grant applications for $10,000 that won't even cover one full time salary. They're asked to measure impact using metrics designed for white led institutions that have never had to choose between paying staff and keeping the doors open. They're praised for their resilience, which is just another way of saying We see you struggling and we're comfortable with that. Here's where it gets interesting. The solution isn't more of the same. It's not another grant application, it's not another diversity initiative that checks boxes but changes nothing. The solution is something that makes funders uncomfortable. It's called unrestricted funding. It's called ceding decision making power to the very people who know their communities best. It's called trust. The Black Equity Fund at the Inland Empire Community Foundation did something radical, something that most philanthropic institutions would never dare to do. They handed over grant making and programming decisions to Black women and community leaders, not as advisors, not as consultants, as decision makers. Full authority, full trust, no strings attached, no burdensome applications, no proving themselves worthy. Just here are the resources. You know what your community needs. You decide. And what happened? Long term community sustainability that traditional funding could never achieve. Narratives shifted. Economic contributions were documented in ways that had never been captured before. Principles of Black equity were co designed, emphasizing truth, strength, and love as success metrics, not just the narrow financial benchmarks that philanthropy has always prioritized. They created a model that could be replicated nationwide. They protected community economies. They advanced racial justice in ways that top down initiatives never could. Sabrina Anderson calls this sovereign leadership. And it's not just about funding, it's about reclaiming internal authority. It's about regulating your own energy instead of constantly seeking approval from systems that were never designed to support you in the first place. It's about understanding that the concrete ceiling, the one that keeps Black women stuck at 54 promotions to first manager for every 100 men promoted, that ceiling doesn't crack because we work harder. It cracks because we stop playing by rules that were rigged from the start. Let's talk about that concrete ceiling for a moment, because this is where the data gets really uncomfortable. Black women face what researchers call a broken rung. It's not just a glass ceiling at the top, it's a structural failure at the very first step of leadership. For every 100 men promoted to first level manager, only 54 Black women get that same opportunity. 54. Let that sink in for a moment. We're not talking about C suite positions. We're not talking about executive leadership. We're talking about the very first rung of the leadership ladder. And here's the thing, if you don't fix that broken rung, if you don't address that early promotion deficit, it doesn't matter how many diversity programs you launch at the top. The math doesn't work. You can't reach parity in mid management, 33.4%, or C suite, 28%, when the pipeline is leaking from the very beginning. It's mathematically impossible. And yet, one organizations keep launching initiatives aimed at senior leadership while ignoring the fact that Black women are being systematically excluded from even entering the pipeline. And it's not just about numbers, it's about what those numbers represent. 60% of senior women report burnout. 60%. Black women are systematically excluded from profit and loss roles, the very roles that lead to CEO positions. In male dominated fields like healthcare, only 13% of CEOs are women. The intersectional biases, the compounding of gender and race barriers, create what Sabrina Anderson describes as a concrete ceiling. It's not glass. Glass you can see through. Glass you can shatter with enough force. Concrete is different. It's harder, it's heavier, it's designed to withstand pressure, and it requires a different kind of strength to navigate. Or better yet, a different approach entirely. But here's the shift. Here's where Sabrina Anderson's insights become transformative. Sovereign leadership isn't about breaking through that ceiling by force. It's about building something entirely different. It's about reclaiming your internal authority, your right to define success on your own terms, your power to regulate your energy and protect your peace without apology. It's about understanding that the system's approval is not the prize. Your wholeness is. This is where the soft girl era meets economic justice. Because what Sabrina Anderson is talking about is what the Black Equity Collective is modeling, what over 600,000 Black women are being forced to reckon with in 2025. The same question we've been asking from day one. How are you learning to be soft in a world that taught you survival? For too long, we've been told that strength means carrying everyone, that leadership means sacrificing ourselves, that success means meeting metrics designed by people who don't look like us, don't live in our communities, and don't understand what it takes to hold a family, a team, a neighborhood together while the ground is shifting beneath our feet. But what if we redefine success? What if we measured impact not just in dollars and promotions, but in cultural preservation, in self determination, in radical love? The principles of Black equity that came out of the Black Equity Collective's work do exactly that. They center truth, strength, and love, not as soft concepts, but as rigorous frameworks for building resilient organizations and resilient lives. Because here's what Sabrina Anderson understands: when you give Black women the resources and the authority to lead their own communities, when you trust them with unrestricted funding and decision making power, they don't just survive, they thrive. They create models that can be replicated nationwide. They protect community economies. They advance racial justice in ways that top down initiatives never could. And this matters for every single one of us listening today. Whether you're an entrepreneur trying to build a business in the middle of economic chaos, whether you're a professional navigating a corporate landscape that still hasn't figured out how to promote you fairly, whether you're a community leader watching funding dry up while needs explode, Sabrina Anderson's work offers a blueprint. It says stop waiting for permission, stop trying to fit into systems that were never built for you. Start building from your own sovereign authority. Let me bring this home with something concrete. The public sector losses in 2025 hit Black women harder than almost any other group. Federal layoffs, policy shifts, entire departments gutted. And who bore the brunt? College educated Black women, the ones who did everything right, the ones who believed that education and hard work would be enough, the ones who earned their degrees, paid their dues, showed up early, stayed late, and still got handed pink slips while watching their colleagues from other demographics see employment gains. Their employment to population ratio dropped while other groups saw increases. Hispanic women, for example, saw a 0.6% increase, but Black women, we saw one of the sharpest declines in a generation. And here's what Sabrina Anderson would tell you: that's not a personal failure, that's a systemic attack. And the response can't be to just find another job in a broken system. The response has to be to build something new, to channel resources, unrestricted resources, to Black women led organizations that can weather policy volatility, to create community centered models of support that don't depend on the whims of federal administrations, to redefine what leadership looks like when you're not chasing approval, but building from a place of sovereign power. So here's my question for you: what if reclaiming your sovereign leadership through unrestricted community power and redefining success with radical love turn 2025's leadership crisis into your era of unshakable impact? What if this moment, this painful, disorienting, exhausting moment, is actually the invitation you've been waiting for? The invitation to stop grinding and start grounding, to stop surviving and start thriving, to stop carrying everyone else's dreams and start building your own. Sabrina Anderson's work proves that it's possible. The Black Equity Fund proves that when you trust Black women with resources and authority, they create sustainability that traditional models can't touch. The data proves that unrestricted funding prevents economic collapse. And your own life, your own journey proves that you've been strong enough to survive. Now it's time to be soft enough to thrive. But here's what I need you to understand: this isn't just about feeling inspired. This isn't just about nodding along and thinking, wow, that's powerful, and then going back to business as usual. This is about disruption. This is about refusing to participate in systems that extract from us without investing in us. This is about building something so radically different that it makes the old models obsolete. Because here's the truth that Sabrina Anderson helped me see: the leadership crisis of 2025 isn't the end of our story, it's the beginning of a new chapter. One where Black women lead from sovereign authority, one where communities are sustained by unrestricted trust and radical love, one where success is measured not by how much we can carry, but by how much we can create when we finally put the cape down. So I'm going to leave you with this. This week, I want you to commit to one bold, disruptive step. If you're in a position to offer support, find a Black women led venture and offer unrestricted funding or resources. No strings, no burdensome applications, just trust. If you're building something yourself, stop accepting crumbs. Demand the resources you need to build something that lasts. Seek out funders who understand that trust is the foundation of transformation. And if you're somewhere in between, start redefining success in your own life. What does your soft girl era look like when you're not measuring yourself by someone else's broken metrics? What does sovereign leadership feel like when you stop seeking approval and start building from your own internal authority? What becomes possible when you choose softness not as weakness, but as the most radical act of resistance available to you? Because the world is watching. Philanthropy is watching. Corporate America is watching. And they're waiting to see if we'll keep begging for seats at tables that were never built for us, or if we'll finally build our own. Sabrina Anderson is showing us the way. The Black Equity Collective is showing us the way. Over 600,000 Black women who walked away in 2025 are showing us the way. Now it's our turn to follow, to disrupt, to build, to lead with sovereign authority, unrestricted power, and radical love. This is your invitation. This is your moment. And the revolution, the one that philanthropy refuses to fund, starts with you.